Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and the second part of this experiment where we see what would happen if you gave the Welsh League £1 billion to every single team and massively improved the youth facilities and recruitment of all of those teams and the Welsh national side. So, as you may have seen in the last part, and if you haven't, make sure to go and watch that first. We did see Wales achieve some success, reaching 3 consecutive European Championship semi-finals, which is a really impressive thing so early on. We had gone 10 years into the future, and we'd also seen some of the Welsh teams try and get close to a European group stage, but still just falling at the 4th qualifying round for the Europa League or the 2nd qualifying round of the Champions League. Not quite making it all the way just yet, but they are getting closer and closer. And today we're going to go 20 years into the future, for a total of 30 years to see where they have ended up and if they have finally managed to crack their way in to the top tier of European football. So a lot to go through today. We'll also have a look at some Welsh regens. We'll look at how the national side's done, how those teams are doing, and also the transfers that have happened, because all those teams have got so much money that they have not yet touched in 10 years. So it'll be interesting to see where all of that goes. Do drop a like on this video if you're enjoying this experiment. Make sure to subscribe as well if you want to see more of this in a couple of days' time. And also let me know if you've got ideas for experiments down in the comments. I always look at the comments, so make sure you leave your suggestions in there. But let's go forward 20 years now and see where we are. Well, we are now in the year 2037, and you can see their manager there, Connor Roberts, at the age of 41. I'm not sure who he is, but he's got a nice little face profile in there. You've got some major transfers, Lee Bonnell going to Man City, but what we really want to jump into is, straight off the bat, the schedule for the senior squad of the Welsh national team. If we drop back to 2027, which is when we left off, you can see the European Championship qualification went reasonably well, except 2 defeats to Germany. They will have qualified from that. And you see they lost 4-0 to Italy in their first game, which won't help. Did beat Switzerland 2-1, but then lost to Hungary. A bit of a shock there, and ultimately were knocked out of the European Championship. So no semi-final this time. Did manage to do well in European League Division C, so we'll go up to Division B. And that is a tough group for the World Cup qualifiers. I'm not sure they even made it, and in fact they did not qualify for the World Cup. So falling back a little bit at the moment and struggling in Division B as well against some not that difficult teams. European Championship qualifiers, again, not doing well against Bosnia-Herzegovina. Lost to Holland as well, despite beating them at home. And in the playoffs, they lost 2-0 to Norway, so did not manage to make it to the European Championships for another year. So a long time without a major competition to play in. They also struggled in their European League Division B group, losing to Kosovo away. I mean, why is that happening? And in the World Cup qualifiers, again, really struggling. Managed to do pretty well in Division B this time, and that should take them up to Division A. Loads of friendlies in 2035, but no international competition, which is interesting. I guess that means that they were the host at what I think would be the World Cup, is it? No, it's the European Championships. They were the host of the European Championships, drew 2-2 with Poland, managed to beat Finland 2-0 as well with 2 late goals, and then nearly lost to Holland before saving it with a draw, but were ultimately knocked out at the Conwy International Arena by England 2-0. Quite unfortunate there, but did well in their European League Division B group. And in their current World Cup qualifiers, they're still trying to make it up there. But it has been a pretty tough time the last 20 years for the Welsh side. They have not managed to really get any success except for when they qualified for their own European Championships. But they seem to have fallen back quite a bit. And as you can see in the world rankings, they are now 18th, which is just not that good. If we look at their world rankings here, you can see that they, in 2027, when we left off, were bouncing around between 8th or 15th, 14th, did manage to go up to 13th, as high as 11th, and since then dropped all the way down to 49th at one point. Recovered really well to 14th, dropped back down to 45th, up to 13th, and are now settling about 18th. But they are absolutely all over the place at the moment. So a lot to improve on. They've got some top players at some top places. If we view the national team, then you can see not the best players in the world, to be honest. Given the youth recruitment that they've got, that is quite poor. They've only got 3 players over 10 million and one at 5 million there as well. If we look at their nation details, They're a developed state, economic factor of 20, FA financial power of 20, facilities pretty good, generated players still at 200, everything's still at good. There is absolutely no reason for them to be struggling like this. So maybe if we have a look at the Welsh League, then you can see at the moment they're ranked 36th in the league rankings. So they've gone up, because before they were just below Sky Bet League 2, they're now just below Sky Bet League 1. So they are improving somewhat, not far off the Jupiler League of Holland, Austrian First Division. Still a middling league, but a lot better than when they were down about 100th place. And generally, it looks like they're improving. If we look at the past winners, there were 3 teams dominating when we left off before, and that has continued to be the case. Connah's Quay were winning everything when we left off. Bangor managed to come back. Connah's Quay got a couple more, but it's been Bangor ever since, so they will be the key side that we'll look at here. And if we go to Bangor and have a look at their senior squad schedule going back to that 27 year. I'm realising now we've only got 10 years ahead, we haven't gone 20 years ahead, so we'll have to go forward again soon. I am sure you guys have realised that well before I have. But we can see here that they struggled in Europa League qualifying the following season. Struggled again, getting knocked out the second qualifying round against a team I've never heard of. Out in the Champions League qualifying round, managed to go out in the third qualifying round of the Europa League. Again, third qualifying round. This time they made the fourth qualifying round, and after winning 2-1 at home against Malaga, they lost 3-0 away to fail to make the group stage. Did well in the Champions League qualifying this time, getting through to the third round, drawing with Sparta Prague at home but losing 1-0 away, getting knocked out, and then losing to Espanyol in the fourth qualifying round there as well. Again, really well in the Champions League qualifying, but ultimately knocked out by Ludogorets, and then nearly got through against this team here, which I won't even try to pronounce. 3-2 on aggregate after a 3-0 away defeat. And then, again, Champions League qualifying campaign going very, very well. And against Legia Warsaw, managed to go through 3-2 on aggregate, but were beaten 6-1 by RB Salzburg. So unable to make that. But they were in the Europa League group stage. I nearly missed that then. 3-0 to Roma, they lost. They won 1-0 here, lost 1-0 at home to Hertha, and 3-0 away, and 2-1 to Roma as well. And 3-0 there. So coming bottom of their group in the end. But at least we finally have a Welsh team in a European group stage for the first time here, 2034-35. The following year, again, making it to the fourth qualifying round, but losing to Ajax, which is not too surprising. They did well there, only losing 2-1 in aggregate. And then in the most recent season, they actually qualified again, beating FC Copenhagen. They're a Champions League group stage team. Lost to Heerenveen, lost 4-0 to Liverpool, but a big trip to Anfield there in a European group stage is quite impressive. 3-0 to Guignon, definitely the Europa League whipping boys. Did manage to draw with Heerenveen, so they at least got a point, but it was not enough, and this time they will go into the Champions League qualifiers to see how they managed to do again. Now if we go back and have a look at Connah's Quay, then we can see, if we run through their senior squad schedule really, really quickly, go back to the 27-28 season here. Fourth qualifying round, lost to Slavan Bratislava. Knocked out by Göteborg 3-0. Only made the second qualifying round that time. Fourth qualifying round, they did actually go through on away goals against FC Sion. So they did it a couple of years before Bangor. They managed to make the Europa League group stage. Lost 2-0 to Spartak Moscow, 2-0 win against Karabag, and a 2-0 win against Dinamo. Means they have 6 points from 9 at the start of this campaign. Lost 2-0 to Dinamo though, lost 2-0 to Spartak, and drew 2-2 with Karabag, which would not be enough to get them through. And they did ultimately fail to qualify for the knockout round. But that is by far the best performance in a European competition. Lost 5-0 to FC Basel in the fourth qualifying round, second qualifying round there, and beaten 3-1 on aggregate in that one. Again, really poor that. And knocked out in the third qualifying round, and in the most recent season failed to get past the second qualifying round. So interesting that they have been the best performing team in Europe for the Welsh League at least, and doing reasonably well across that time. Now if we have a look at the transfers of this Welsh League over the last 10 years, starting with the 26-27 season, this is where we left off. They did break the £1 million barrier a couple of years before this. The following season, a lot more teams getting involved in actual cash purchases. Again, pretty even spread. A little bit more money being spent here as well, but a lot of it going out. The likes of Spurs, Derby and Arsenal picking up Welsh players. Carmarthen spent 275k. Man City signed someone for nearly £1 million. So nobody getting close to that £1 million barrier just yet, but there is a varying amount of money being spent. We do have a transfer there for over £1 million, but again, leaving Wales, not going into it. So not an awful lot to talk about there, unfortunately. They aren't spending the money that they've got. And if we have a look at Connors Quay and look at their club details, you can see they've got a decent reputation now. It's still going up. It's at 4,000. Finances still very good, but somehow they have spent 250 million, which I literally have no idea how they have spent that much money. They've not improved their stadium. Their facilities are decreasing. They aren't improving them. And I don't understand how they could lose 300 million unless it's some sort of tax, or I honestly don't know. It's been 20 years and somehow they've blown 300 million without really achieving much at all. But still doing reasonably well, it has to be said. They are going up. It's going to take a bit of time. I'm going to go forward another 10 years and we're going to very, very quickly run through the key components, and then we'll take a more detailed look in the next part if we do want to. Do drop a like on this video if you do want to see another part, but let's go forward 10 years. Well, we're another 10 years further forward, and you can see here that they're back up to 8th in the world rankings. They've got Elliot Hulse in charge of their team now. If we go to that senior squad schedule and drop back to 2037 when we left off, you can see their World Cup qualifying campaign went a lot better. It looks like they did qualify this time, but they didn't qualify despite this excellent run. They must have missed out to Bosnia-Herzegovina and Greece, which is quite unfortunate. Struggled in Division A the first time they've been in there for a very long time. But European Championship qualifications went well except for 2 defeats to England, and they did qualify, and this is very impressive. 1-0 defeat to Denmark, not the best start. Drew with Spain, 2-1 win, 84th minute winner, sent them to the second round where they beat Belgium 1-0. They then beat Austria 4-2. They were 2-1 down in the 78th minute. Danny Yat got a goal. He scored in the 90th minute, and then in the 94th minute of stoppage time, he completed his hat-trick to become probably the most famous Welshman in a very, very long time. And then in the final, Jake Davies with 2 goals beat Spain and sent them to the European Championship final, where they won 3-2 thanks to a 90th minute winner from Liam James. Can you believe that? Liam James has won the European Championship for Wales. He's worth 41.5 million, playing for Manchester City, and he proved worth every single penny there. He started his career at Bangor, where he had a good rating, went to Man City for just 700k, went on loan to Monaco, then moved to Chelsea for 26.5 million, moved to PSG for 63 million, where he had a very good time, and then moved to Man City, or back to Man City on a free transfer. What a story that is. They have won the European Championship. A very, very impressive performance after struggling for so long. Now, the following season, they were in the Confederations Cup, but were beaten in the semi-finals 3-1 by Germany. And lost the third place playoff on penalties. The 2 heroes there, Liam James and Jake Davies, getting a couple of goals, but not enough for them ultimately. World Cup qualifying campaign got them into the World Cup, where they drew with Mexico, beat Portugal 2-0, beat Egypt 4-0. Danny Yat loves a hat-trick in these competitions, but ultimately they were they went through on penalties against Turkey despite a 95th minute equaliser, and then it lost to Spain, who got some measure of revenge, but they made it to a World Cup quarter-final, which is very, very impressive. European Championship qualifications went brilliantly yet again, even drew with Germany away, and then in the European Championships, as reigning champions, managed to get through their group with 7 points, beat Russia 4-1 going through, 3-1 against Finland, but beaten 2-1 by Portugal in the semi-finals, an 83rd minute goal for Portugal doing the damage. Following season, look at that qualifying campaign, a 13-0 win as well over Liechtenstein, and a 9-0 win in that match as well. They are looking like more and more of a force every time we go forward. 3-0 over Morocco, 3-0 over South Korea, 4-2 over Costa Rica, 8-1 in a knockout round of a World Cup. Sean Palmer with 4 goals there, but ultimately beaten by Spain yet again at a World Cup quarter-final. And at the moment, still trying to qualify for the European Championships. But that is quite a record that Wales have managed to pick up. You can see it there, 2040, a European Championship in the bag. Very, very, very impressive. When we look at the national team as well, it's just, I mean, compare this to just 10 years ago. They are finally bringing the players through, and I think it's going to have something to do with the clubs themselves. They must be going up the rankings because they've got several players here worth over £20 million, which is why they're doing so well. The entire team looks a lot more like an established nation side. Not a top tier one, but a lot better, which is why they're sitting 8th in the world. So, I mean, I'd imagine that to look a lot more like a Colombian side than a French side, but still, they are getting better and they are still improving, and that will continue to be the case, I'm sure. Now, if we have a look at the Welsh League, very, very quickly, you can see Bangor still absolutely dominating this league. They are the only team to really spend much time on here. We will have a look at Connah's Quay as well, but at the moment, they are in the European Champions Cup because the Welsh League, if we take a quick look at it, is now up to 20th. They were as high as 15th, dropped down to 25th, but back up to 20th now. And they are doing very, very well, competing with the Croatian, Serbian, Greek and Bulgarian league. They're not far off the championship now, and are actually doing very, very well, which means that they must be doing well in Europe. So if we have a look at their senior squad schedule, drop back to the 37-38 season. This is where we left off before. They did qualify for the group stage again. Tough time of it, being beaten by Spurs, Hajduk there, and then ultimately not making it out of the group. Following year, again doing well, consecutive Europa League group stages here. Not quite made the Champions League just yet, but doing well in the group stage as well, getting some wins in there, but not enough to get out of the group stage. And then finally, they managed to do it. They beat Olympiacos home and away in the 4th Champions League qualifying round after taking out Malmo before that as well. And we finally have a Welsh League team in the Champions League, beaten 3-0 by Moscow though, and then 1-0 by Juventus, 3-0 by Atletico Madrid, 2-0 by Atletico Madrid, 1-0 by Moscow and 2-0 by Juventus, coming dead rubber bottom of the group, but so impressive they managed to do it, and that would have given them a huge boost in their finances too. The following year, they managed to get into the Europa League group stage again, where they did get a win, a draw, loss, draw, and then a draw, and it was... Oh no, they managed to make it to the knockout stages of a European competition. They are getting so much better now. Lost ultimately 4-0 to AC Milan, but making it out to the knockout stages of the group there. Very, very impressive. The following season, back in the Champions League group stage, but with Barcelona, Chelsea and Benfica in the group. They were always going to lose all 6 matches. Again, only the Europa League group stage this time, but they got a few wins in there, not enough. Oh no, it wasn't enough to get out of the group. It takes so little to get out of the Europa League group for some reason, but they weren't able to get past Lazio. 3-0 defeat on aggregate, but it is happening more and more often. Again, in the Europa League group stages, and less qualifying rounds now. They must have got some sort of boost to the league that enabled them to go straight into the playoff stage of the Champions League qualifiers. But they weren't able to get past Copenhagen, struggled in the group as well, and did not manage to make out of there. Once more, Champions League playoff went through there, so into the Champions League group stage. Still not got a win in this competition, and that continues to be the case here as Benfica, Leverkusen and Valencia make light work of them. Champions League qualifying had to go through a bit more effort this time, but made it to the group stage of Europa League. Quite a few wins there as well, so they must be out of it. And there you go, 5-0 defeat to Monaco in the first knockout round. And then again, Europa League group stage, did they manage to make it out? They did not, unfortunately. And that takes us up to now. So they've done very, very, very well there, Bangor, it has to be said, which is why the league is now ranked so high. Connah's Quay have come second an awful lot. So I am very, very quickly just going to race through this from the 37-38 season. They did better than Bangor the first time we looked at this. But they did not make it into the group stage there, nor there. Made it into the group stage this time. Did they make it out of the group stage? They did not. Following season, group stage again, but not able to make it out. Group stage for another year, and this is why they keep on climbing up those league rankings, because they're making improvements consistently. And here you go again in the group stage. Oh, they did make it out finally, but lost 5-1 to Vigo. It'd be interesting to see if they did manage to make it further than Bangor did, but it doesn't look like that's been the case here. Again, in the Europa League group stage, made it to the next round, lost 1-0 at home, but won 1-0 away, and made it to the second round where they lost to Inter Milan. Going through against Schalke though, very, very impressive. They're now into the last 16 of a European competition, and that is very, very impressive and a great place to leave it off. Now, very quickly, if we can just see their transfers and see if they've managed to go up over the last 10 years, you can see a bit more money being spent there. And here you go, £10 million spent on a player from West Ham. They are competing with the big leagues now. Lots of money being spent. Again, this season here, 8 million, 9 million, 5 million. Huge amounts of money. Bangor leading the way with the cash being spent. And that is great to see, given they are the leading team in Wales. A lot of competitions there. If we look at their finances very quickly, then you can see they've got an awful lot of money still in the bank, and that will continue to be the case because they are not spending it. But as they go up the league rankings, they will continue to spend that money in a growing rate. So a lot to look forward to going into the future. You've seen the Welsh national side there, you've seen the leagues, you've seen how they've done in Europe, and you've seen the international side. If there's anything else you want to see, do let me know down in the comments. But do drop a like on the video if you want to see another part of this. I think they've got further to go, so I might go another 20 years in the future next time around. So do let me know if you're enjoying this one. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new so that you see the next part when it comes out in a couple of days' time. You can also follow me on Twitter using the link in the description, and support the channel on Patreon using the link down there as well. But until next time, see ya!